Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, namaste. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to connect with us on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Jedley Magic on Twitter, at Reading with Your Kids on Instagram. Our guest today is Claire Hallinan, talking about Where My Breath Loves Me. Before we invite Claire in, I want to tell you a little bit of a story that you're probably not going to be, but is absolutely true. I've been telling you for a few weeks that I've been working to Zoomify my live educational magic show to make it available to kids all over the world live via Zoom. And I've been telling you that I've been having a lot of fun with it, that it is surprisingly interactive, is much more interactive than I thought it could be, and it's a lot of fun. Well, this morning, I had an opportunity to perform for Claire Hallinan's 5th grade students in her school in Washington State. It was a blast. And shortly after the performance, Claire sent me a note and she said, "Thank you so much for coming to our Zoom meeting today. Your storytelling is a treasure. All the teachers appreciated your show and hospitality. I really liked the message about unity, and you presented it really, really well. Thank you for your generosity, kindness, and willingness to perform for us." I'm really overwhelmed. I want to thank Claire for inviting me into her school. I want to thank her amazing students for giving me a really fun morning. And I want to thank you in advance for taking me up on my invitation to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, clicking on the live events button to find out how you can bring this powerful and really fun interactive magic show to your community via technology. Joining us on the line right now from beautiful Washington State. She is returning to the podcast to celebrate the release of her brand new book, Where My Breath Loves Me. Please welcome back to the show, Claire Hallinan. Claire, how are you? So good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Jed. It's so nice to see you back in this program.
Yeah, I think that this is the perfect time to celebrate Where My Breath Loves Me. As I recall, the first time you were here, we were talking about just helping kids learn how to breathe and learn how to love themselves. And I think that this is if there is ever a time where we need to learn how to breathe and be calm and to just know that we are special and that things are going to be okay, this is the time as we're entering our 3rd month of pandemic lockdown. And will we open? Will we not open? Will we open and then have to close again? So many questions. And the need to kind of sit back and breathe is so very important. So tell us about this brand new book, please.
So I never thought about book 2 is coming, but it's, I teach every day as a 5th grade teacher, and I've been practicing mindfulness every single day. And just, the mind is coming in and out. And during the process of my practice, just idea popped up. What if we can use mindfulness in the school activities? And actually, that's what we are doing. And my purpose for this book is for the children to know they have the tool already in them. Mm-hmm. So if I introduce several examples, kids can use, they can use the creativity and use the breath or mindfulness approach in activities. So this book has a main character, the 3rd grade student. Her name is April. April has really nice school. She really loves school. But one day mindfulness teacher, Mr. Gentleheart. He started visiting her classroom to teach mindfulness. And since then, she already loved school, but she started seeing things in more depth.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, like going to the music classroom, and in the voice lesson, she noticed that her teacher was encouraging students to use belly breathing. So by using belly breathing, her voice becomes rich and really nice tone, and she enjoys that sound. And another instance, when she goes to the library teacher is Mr. Reed. He is encouraging students, hey, before you turn the page, take a break and then take a breath and visualize what you have read so far. And she feels like, sitting in the movie theater, looking at the movie, and it was so joyful. Those are the small examples in the book.
Well, there's a lot that pops out at me, but one of the ones, Claire and I were talking before we started recording about my educational magic show. And one of the things that I encourage kids to do is to read vividly, to visualize what it is they're reading. I have to add that part about breathing. But there's so many studies that show that kids who read vividly, who take the time to think about what it is they read and to actually try to visualize it, it makes a huge difference in their comprehension. They learn better. They absorb more of what it is they're reading. I remember being a kid and reading a book and, going through 100 pages and reading every single word in the page and being finished with the book and not knowing anything that happened in the book.
Absolutely.
So what a great, even if you're not, because I know, and Claire, too, there are some people, mindfulness, yoga, that's just woo-woo stuff. I'm not into that. But there's no denying that this is a great place to start with our kids, to sit down and to just get into the practice with them, to take that breath when they finish a page and to think about it. So very important. I have to tell you, I love the names of the character. Mr. Reed, the library teacher. Mr. Gentleheart, the mindfulness teacher. That's awesome.
I know.
Do you know? Did you model Mr. Gentleheart after anybody?
No, I actually, there are so many interesting names. Like we have the teacher, Mrs. Labridge, and another counselor I heard, Mr. Gentler, in my own life.
Uh-huh.
So I was thinking those names are possible. So that's how I come up with Gentleheart. Mm-hmm. Mr. Gentleheart should be there. And I was actually talking with my daughter, and I am thinking about the name. And so that PE teacher is Mr. Jam. and math teacher is Mr. Pie.
Uh-huh.
And music teacher is Mrs. Treble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And swimming teacher is Miss Finn.
Miss.
So yeah, I enjoy creating the character, and the great part was to collaborate with the illustrator. Mm-hmm. So her way of creating is a little bit similar, but a little bit different. But I told my illustrator the character is so important because each character is, except April, is a teacher, April's experience so important through mindful teacher. They don't or they do not necessarily mindful trained teachers, but the way they deliver her experience is mindful. So I just wanted to capture those important teachers in school.
Well, let's give a shout out to your illustrator. What's your illustrator's name?
Charity Russell.
Yeah.
Charity Russell, I found her online, and she's in England. So I worked internationally.
Absolutely, this is wonderful. I love it. I'm just getting into the habit of asking for illustrators. It's something my daughter has taught me to be mindful of. She's in the music business, and every time we go to a concert together, when the mega star is up there, that everybody's there, and that star has his or her name on the marquee. And my daughter is always so happy when that star, the person that everybody is there to adore, takes the time to introduce the people in the band. And oh my goodness, if they take the time to introduce the people in the crew and the techs and the road managers, my daughter's off the wall, and she is a fan of that person forever. So I think it's really important to be mindful of everybody who helps us put our art together.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm interested in April, the third grader. And now you're a fifth grade teacher, so you've had hundreds of kids that have looked up to you and learned from you. Was April inspired by any particular person, or is April sort of a combination of many different people that have been in your life?
I would say April is very common person. You can see anyone like April. April has compassion. She enjoys. She goofs off sometimes, but she loves school. And there are so many people love school, and I thought that was really relatable. And if there are someone who do not like school, by reading this book, I want them to think about, there are some possibility to enjoy activities. And you mentioned about pandemic, and I want all children read this book during this time, because I want them to remember this time, not negative way, but most positive way, which means by implementing mindfulness in each activity they do. They have a special things like baking with the family and, walking with family, and they could do something they couldn't do before the pandemic. And so if you focus those positives in more enrichment way, for instance, in this book, I talk about the science observation, and just one observation of the leaf. April sees that the leaves has lots of tiny lines, and Mr. Wood talks about, hey, these are the lines. Actually, the tube, the water's going through, like your vein, the blood going through. They are so related. And she thinks that is so fabulous, like nature and my body, like connecting. So that really enriches her experience. So what if all the children right now at this hard time apply their activities into that deep way and meaningful, enriching way? They will find out themselves how resilient they were and how creative they were. Yes, there was a really hard time, but look at me. I have a strength to went through.
I'm so happy that you mentioned that, because Yeah, this is a really, really hard time, and it is so much harder for some people than others. You know, one of the phrases I like to remind people of is, we're all in the same storm. We're not all in the same boat. You know, there are some of us who are able to get through this in a much more comfortable way. But what a wonderful time for all of us to understand that we are resilient. One thing that we've talked about here in the podcast a lot is how there are so many kids that are overprotected, and their parents who are filled with so much love. They don't want anything bad to happen to their kids. They want to overprotect. They practically bubble wrap the kids, and it's unrealistic. But here is a situation where it was completely out of our control, and those kids that were bubble wrapped and overprotected, they were just thrown into the storm the same way, and they survived. And what a great lesson for all of us to really, what an important time to just kind of breathe and be aware of that and be mindful that yes, we survived this. We did this together.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Mr. Gentleheart, in the lesson, the beginning of the story, he brings out this when he modeling the big breath, breathe in and breathe out, and then he hugs himself, and I love my breath, and my breath loves me. And then after that, he asks children, bring the place you feel your breath is loving you. That's how April's exploration starts. So she knows breathing helps her and mindfulness helps her, but she was not sure really her breath is loving her, or can I even identify the place? So that made her more curious. See, curiosity enriches her life. And I am so glad she explored different places. And finally, she just exploded like, Mr. Gentleheart, I don't know where exactly, because everywhere I go, I feel this. My breath is loving me. And now he's going to guide her. Stop, April. Think about your experience, and the final answer is revealed all by herself.
Wonderful. This is wonderful. I think that this is just a beautiful book and such an important lesson. And I think it's an important lesson, you know, that the lesson to help us understand that our breath, you know, my breath loves me. That's important for me to know as an adult. And I think what a great experience for families to sit down and to learn this together.
Absolutely, yeah. And this book's so important because I wanted to give something to my fifth grade students who cannot go back to school. So I decided to sign my copy and mail to them as a graduation gift. And my dedication is to Mrs. Hallinan's champions in 2019 to 2020. So when they see this page, hey, this was a year we were in fifth grade, and even though that was a tough time, somebody's really thinking of me, and I can do this because we conquered the challenges.
Absolutely. And what a wonderful memory to look back on. And, you know, when your fifth graders are graduated college and they have their own families, and they can sit down and they can read this book with their kids and teach their kids to learn that their breath loves me. and just remind the kids, hey, this was dedicated to me and my classmates, and this is what happened to us, and we get through this. And baby, I love you. I know that you can get through anything too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, please tell everybody where we can connect with you online so we can learn more about you and also learn more about your books.
Okay. You can reach me at my email, claire.e.hallinan@gmail.com. And also I have WordPress, claire.e.hallinan. So, and the books are available in Amazon. Yeah.
Excellent.
And you can get the book in the bookstore by your request.
Excellent. Yes. And that's really important, for any book that you are hearing about here on the show. I know there are a lot of folks who, they love their little independent bookstore just because an author comes on and say, hey, it's available on Amazon. You can go to your local bookstore. You can ask them to make a special request. Authors love that because there's so many. I had a friend of mine. I was telling him the other day that there are literally like thousands of children's books published every month, and he was blown away. He didn't think there were 1,000 printed every year, but there are so many, and it's so even for books that come from big traditional publishing houses, they have to struggle to find space on bookshelves. A great way to help an indie author break through is to take the time to call up or to visit that bookstore and say, hey, do you have Claire Hallinan's Where My Breath Loves Me? I would love to purchase that book from you. It puts it bang, and, if 2 or 3 people order that, then there's a good chance that indie bookstore will say, well, maybe I should carry this book in my bookstore.
Absolutely. That's a really great idea. Yeah.
So everybody, I think this is a great book for you to check out, a great addition to your family library, Where My Breath Loves Me by our guest, Claire Hallinan. Claire, I am so happy that you came back with us tonight. Thank you so very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, Jed.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We will be welcoming back Dr. Ron Melman and also his co-author, Carolyn Bliss Larson. Dr. Ron always has an amazing information to share with us, especially when it comes to kids with ADHD and other attention issues. Be sure to check it out. That's the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love for you to be a guest here on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. All you need to do is to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the contact button. You'll find that at the bottom of the page. Let us know about your great book. We'll let you know the next easy steps. You can also find the button for our live events at readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Claire Hallinan. Please be sure to check out Where My Breath Loves Me. Also want to thank my incredible team, starting with my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.